WEFUNK. We funk.
But I guess we are evolving to the next step for live music, which I guess will get us in to our next segment on the show, as I'm very, very excited to bring to you my latest installment, and I guess my first installment of the year, actually, now that I think about it, but so excited to bring to you for the first time here on this Season 2 of Big LW's Jammin' World podcast. In 2020, I bring to you a Big LW eyewitness account concert review, a concert review from a man who was there to witness it, which I know is not the most impressive feature of a concert review to have been there, although I was so tired of people watching concerts via webcast and telling you about them that I decided to make the distinction. However, I guess, as this will be a little bit of an unusual and a untraditional Big LW eyewitness account concert review, as this one will actually be of a webcast, right? Which is normally the number one rule against these things. However, as we sit in Coronaville, and that's all we have. That's what I'm going to review. All right. So today I'm going to give you the Big LW eyewitness account concert review of At Home Together, the Global Citizens Fest webcast, which was an interesting experience to watch, and as well it will be an interesting experience to review, as like I mentioned, normally the whole gimmick, these are me breaking down concerts that I've been at. However, with the live music world shut down, At Home Together, the Global Citizens Fest was definitely the biggest, most star-studded celebration of webcast concert that Coronaville has seen. So I've decided to give it the big eyewitness account concert review. And like I mentioned, interesting for a couple reasons, as this concert actually took place almost 1 year to the day from one of my previous Big LW eyewitness account concert review, as on season 1 of Big LW's Jammin' World podcast, episode 5, the May edition, included my review of the Frank Zappa hologram tour experience. All right, on 4/20, of course, at the Cap. So interestingly enough, that was a psychedelic virtual mind fuck of an experience in its own regard. And then 1 year later, a virtual mindfuck of a concert experience, although in a totally different way. And as well, another interesting factor about this one, though, the fact that it is a webcast. This will definitely be the eyewitness account concert review with the absolute best chance of any of the fellow audience members have actually seeing it themselves. Okay. Nor, if you didn't see it, fully acceptable to watch the webcast this time, because that's all that I did, where you wouldn't have been the same if you checked out the Zappa hologram experience YouTube clip that got posted. All right, really missing the action by not checking out the shirtless hologram of Frank Zappa live and direct on April 20th, mind you. but and I guess I'd definitely check out all of my past Big LW concert review experiences, all available on my YouTube page, mind you. But the eyewitness account concert review experience of Wu-Tang at Terminal 5, the Frank Zappa hologram experience at the Cap, Tedeschi Trucks Band, and John Fogerty at the Woodstock 50 Bethel Woods Art Celebration, or of course, Bob Dylan at the Beacon Theater. All, of course, from Season 1. All, of course, concert reviews from Season 1 of Big LW's Jammin' World podcast. But now we get into it for the first time here on Season 2 with, like I mentioned, At Home Together, the Global Citizens Fest virtual concert experience, which we've talked a little bit about so far here in the Music of Coronaville episodes on the Geeked Up podcast or here on the Jammin' World, last month. But really been enjoying these star-studded, telethon-style webcast experiences, especially in, mid-April, April 18th to be exact, is when At Home Together was debuted across all of your major television networks, as well as all over the internet and everything, but on April 18th. So at this point, solidly 1 month in to life in Coronaville. We all had watched Tiger King by this point. So by the middle of April, we're really getting starved for some new, fresh, exciting, entertaining content, just in general, to sink our teeth into, which is really one of the cool features of these webcasts. They are just new and oftentimes live, but at the very least, very current, thoughts from some of our favorite people in the, music and entertainment world. Okay, definitely there was a super, element of the whole bonding experience between, all of us being quarantined and seeing the musicians and celebrities, quarantined as well, and hearing their experiences about, their first month so far in Coronaville. So that was a super cool and unique aspect of these, telethon webcast style things. It's really interesting to see just the different artistic presentations from the different, artists and entertainers of where they decide to set up in their house, and you get to see what Justin Timberlake's couch looks like, right? And super interesting, and personal kind of touches from the different artists and entertainers, like I said. So that's always a cool thing. They're coming at you with a lot of big names usually in these things as well. So you do almost get, like I've brought up, but you almost get that fear of missing out. You get that FOMO that the music world loves so much. I can't go make dinner now. I haven't seen the Eddie Vedder 3-minute set yet. So you get that whole thing. You don't want to turn away because you don't know what's coming up next. And you don't want to miss your favorite artist. So they have that going for them. So I've really enjoyed the webcasts, and like I mentioned, up to and even still to this point in May, the At Home Together Global Citizens Fest really was, like I mentioned, the most star-studded, cast and presentation of one of these Coronaville telethons. All right, so I guess that as well would be another, a good thing to mention, that this whole thing was put together by The Who. Right, which again, false advertising, because it's not the 60s English rock band, but unfortunately the World Health Organization, right? So, but I guess, of course, probably the money going to be allocated to more appropriate places than the hilarious estate of The Who, than whatever grandchildren are cashing in on The Who royalties. But, of course, the World Health Organization putting it all together with all, proceeds going to the World Health Organization. So, of course, the telethon one did include a lot of, special interest pieces and, shout-outs to, healthcare workers and all of the, people at the front lines working through Coronaville, and definitely, I guess, however, all donations and everything done in advance, however, okay, so they weren't hitting you over the head, no phone numbers scrolling at the bottom, and a call me now situation, okay, however, made up for in other marketed ways, which I'll get into. But so all things considered, you as well were taking part in a good cause by watching Lady Gaga put together, and as well the Who. So the Who tapped Gaga to put it all together. So then she was kind of, she was really, the orchestrator behind the whole thing, apparently. Okay, and she did a very good job at recruiting some big names in the music biz, like I mentioned, as Paul McCartney, Eddie Vedder, Billie Eilish, Billy Joel, Beyonce, Alicia Keys, and many, many more, all scheduled to appear on At Home Together, the Global Citizens Fest, which I mentioned was broadcast on, in classic telethon style, all of the major networks, putting their blood feuds aside, and all airing as well on the internet. I believe I watched it via my Roku on my YouTube channel. Okay, so no shortage of ways to check out Global Citizens Fest, right? And I guess that'll really kind of get us in to the show rundown here, all right? As I guess it all kicked off with the Jimmys and Stephen Colbert all opening the show from the separate ski lodges in which they apparently live. And I guess Jimmy Kimmel's caught a lot of flack for his terrible house, which I did get to see the outside of on a Celebrity Hollywood Hills Celebrity House tour, in which my mom pestered the driver into taking us past Kimmel's house. So I got to drive past it, and now I've got to see the inside too. And I guess, like I mentioned, he's caught a lot of flack, but I guess the Kimmel and Colbert, I think, as well, already doing their shows nightly from their house. So this is nothing new. Old hat for Kimmel, Colbert, and Fallon, who at this point have been doing live Zoom episodes in Coronaville. But they open up the show and kind of give you a brief, introduction as to what it's going to be, live concert performances mixed in with features on teachers, healthcare workers, and all of the people, like I mentioned, heroically getting us through life in Coronaville. But I guess then the music, however, really kicked off with Lady Gaga, who, like I mentioned, was the coordinator of this whole thing. And Lady Gaga, as well, like I mentioned, I guess, in a couple of the earlier episodes of the Jammin World podcast this year, but had talked about how Lady Gaga was really all poised for the summer of 2020 to make another big splash in the music biz with a new album coming out, and she took off last year and didn't really do anything. I'm in the shadow. But, so you were going to get to hear it, and a major tour announced. So you were finally going to get to hear The Shallow live at a Gaga concert for the first time, and a major album. So a huge summer and a huge year planned for Gaga. All of that put on pause, and instead she opened up on piano from her living room with a gorgeous rendition of Smile. All right. From there, we went on to Stevie Wonder, who absolutely crushed it, honoring the great Bill Withers with an amazing version of Lean on Me, which as well, of course, in honor of Bill Withers, but as well, very appropriate to the timing and mood of the world in general. So real highlight from Stevie early on in the show, I guess. From Stevie Wonder, we continued on with some more star power as the show literally went Gaga, Stevie Wonder to Paul McCartney. All right. So like I mentioned, just a major star power. We were kicking off the show with some major musical star power, but Paul McCartney gave a touching shout out to the healthcare workers, who of course his mom, and I say this of course just because I watched The Thing, so of course, but his mom was apparently a nurse, so he gave a big shout out to the healthcare workers before launching into Lady Madonna. Okay, which I guess a song, of course, about his mom, who again the whole nurse angle. However, from the whole Paul McCartney catalog, could have gone with something potentially a little bit more powerful of a song I might have expected than Lady Madonna. All right, however, a great version by Paul. However, and of course, while the song played, a montage of healthcare workers. Again, big shout out to Paul McCartney's mom, right, as well as all the other nurses in Coronaville, but mostly Paul McCartney's mom. But no, of course, big shout out to all the healthcare workers, of course, and that goes for me and Paul, right? So he's not the only one that likes you guys, but. I guess from there we went on to Casey Musgraves, who I guess major rising star in the country world, but a big spot for Casey Musgraves in front of the world. Gaga, Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, Casey Musgraves, who absolutely killed it with her original Rainbow. And, of course, the rainbow kind of being a Coronaville sign of hope, people putting rainbows in their windows. There was a whole big, connection there to Casey Musgraves from her living room, doing an amazing version of Rainbow. So great start to the show. When we come to the first commercial break, which I guess I'll get into it a little bit later on in my review, but commercials, this is absolute bullshit. We're a month into Coronaville, and this is a 2-hour webcast on all the channels. However, like I mean, I'll get into it later. My thoughts on the commercials, however, a little surprised, I'll just say, early into, after the first 10 minutes when we cut to our first commercial break. But I guess we come out of commercial with Beckham, with the Beckham family. All right, Bex and Victoria, who it looked to me had the sickest house that I saw on the webcast. But the Beckham family throws it to Sir Elton John from his tiny, cramped Los Angeles backyard. But Elton John outside on the piano for a great rendition of I'm Still Standin'. And that was a major highlight for Sir Elton, who brought the energy back up coming out of commercial. All right. Up next was at first I thought it was a huge spot for Joe Exotic's shirtless husband. It turns out it was Maluma. And Maluma, English bro. I mean, this is a Who concert, all right? we got English rocking to do, so but Maluma gave us a sick Spanish jam, all right? Up next was Shawn Mendes, who I don't think tried hard enough on his version of Wonderful World from Shawn Mendes. I guess from there we went on to one of the acts I'm most looking forward to on the night. But Eddie Vedder, who, of course, with the entire amazing catalog from Pearl Jam, as well, Eddie Vedder, really known in Pearl Jam shows to specialize in the cover. I was expecting nobody that does Eddie love to cover more than The Who, ironically enough. So I was actually really hoping for an Eddie Vedder Who cover, no joke, as I was literally expecting him to like bust out Baba O'Reilly on acoustic. However, instead he hops on to the keys, which were set to accordion. He's on like the accordion keyboard for a version of River Cross, which is, of course, one of his latest tracks from the recently released Gigatron. I mean, Eddie, no one wants a new one. All right, give us Jeremy on electric, or like I mentioned, The Who on acoustic. Give me something that I've heard. I'll listen to Gigatron someday, I swear. But this is the Global Citizens Fest. Can you give me something I can use after Shawn Mendes almost made me turn the channel? But so I guess a little disappointed in River Cross from Eddie. Gorgeous song, however, was hoping for something a little more 90s. I guess. From there, however, the day was saved by Lizzo with an absolutely amazing Change Gonna Come, a real highlight. And then I guess the unofficial first set. And I guess the end to the 8 o'clock hour was an absolutely epic guest appearance. As nothing better in a concert than a guest appearance, but an unannounced harmony from the Rolling Stones on 4 different cameras from 4 separate living rooms. But of course, Mick and Keith and Charlie and Ronnie Jr., all with an amazing job on a Zoom harmony of Get What You Need. And really a major highlight. It kicked off with the first 45 seconds, Mick solo acoustic. Shortly thereafter, joined of course by Keith. And then from there, like I mentioned, Ronnie Wood Jr. On electric guitar, and then of course Charlie Watts on air drums, which was absolutely hilarious, as he's literally playing along to like he had like a bucket and a notebook that he was air drumming on, but perfectly atmospheric to the amazing Zoom harmony from the guy's studio track. Was a real, like I said, a real major highlight to close out the first set with the guest appearance from the Rolling Stones. All right, so another commercial break as well, like we had mentioned, mixed in along the way some great, some very moving, pieces on some of the different people at the front lines as well. All right, but we got back into it with the music to kick off the second set with Keith Urban. Okay, who was the first one really clever enough to use a drum machine. Okay, so well played by him, as he was in like his musical studio and had a much more a full studio sound on his great cover of Higher Love, which was a real highlight from Keith Urban. It's pretty much the whole first set was all either a piano or acoustic guitar. So like I mentioned, outside of Charlie air drumming, but I guess the Stones was the first like 4-piece, Zoom harmony. Keith Urban was the first one to use a drum machine and some backing instrumental with him on guitar. Okay, same thing by Burna Boy, who Burna Boy did a sick, rap with backing music dubbed in, which was a real highlight. Okay, on to J-Lo with People, which was actually pretty sick. However, a total Joe Exotic situation going on. There's no way that was J-Lo's real J-Lo voice. She might as well be been singing "Here, Kitty, Kitty" on her version of People. But J-Lo sitting on her fountain in her Miami mansion was actually a great job by J-Lo. But from there, we went on to John Legend and Sam Smith on a really solid Zoom harmony version of Stand By Me. Okay. From there, we went to the Billies. All right, as first up was Billy Joe, of course, from the 90s, but really not digging his, like, corporate Billy Joe new look, as, first of all, no mascara, making me look bad, as of course, I predicted him to be wearing mascara on this star-studded webcast for no reason. However, no mascara, which I can understand, but not digging, like, the sports coat. All right, I mean, not the punk rock Billy Joe Armstrong that I know and love. However, an amazing job on acoustic for September Ends. For Billy Joe, we moved then, however, to Billie Eilish, who came out looking a lot more like Billy Joe, way more punk rock Green Day than Billy Joe, as at least she had like the green hair thing going, and really looked a lot like Woodstock '94 Billy Joe, but she could have been slinging mud while stupid Billy Joe was in a sports coat. But Billie Eilish, and of course her brother Phineas, but a great cover of Sunny for Billie Eilish was a great job. So fantastically done by the two Billies. All right, bringing us as we're getting close now. We're at like a 9:50 or a quarter to. So entering the big closer for At Home Together Global Citizens Fest. With Taylor Swift and a beautiful version of Soon Will Get Better, leading up to the big all-star Zoom harmony closer, where Lady Gaga returned to close it down after, like I mentioned, she provided the opening number, and like I mentioned, of course, Gaga, who really, I guess, put the whole thing together at the urging of the Who. But so Gaga coming back for a second act of the night. However, on an amazing Zoom harmony with Celine Dion, Andrea Bariacelli, and John Legend, who was literally texting on his stage. Legend, we got like 10 minutes to go in this fucking show. Can you give me one more tune here before literally texting from your stairs with like three of the other best vocalists in the world? But you're with Bariacelli, Dion, and Gaga. And Legend can barely hold his focus, as well as some amazing Chinese guy playing piano, who I'm sure is probably like literally the best classical pianist in the world. However, I'm not putting him in the whack shit category, however. Not exactly a household name here in the Jammin world, but an amazing, a truly amazing Zoom harmony of the prayer from a star-studded cast to close down the At Home Together Global Citizens Fest. And I guess, all in all, a really super cool show, and a real, a special night, a special couple of hours to take your mind off of the reality of Coronaville. Especially at that time in mid-April, so it really was a fun show, and some real cool performances from the positive. If you want me to give a negative, if you want me to complain, I guess I alluded to it earlier, but was a little bit surprised by the fact that there was your regularly timed commercials. This wasn't even like a limited commercial engagement, and the fact that it was only for 2 hours hours on all of the different networks and, all over the internet and everything. They really could have bought out the commercial timing, I would have thought, okay, as well. Not only were there commercials, but there were as well a lot of paid sponsorships where, they would rack up, God knows how much money from Pepsi, let's say, and then Pepsi would kind of do like, not a full-on Pepsi commercial, but it would kind of be like a half, it would be, like a Pepsi-sponsored salute to the nurses, where they would give you, we would cut from a public interest piece on the nurses, which was great, to like a Pepsi-sponsored thing on the nurses that, shows some nurses with a Pepsi truck pulling up and, keeping the nurses' thirst is quenched. Pepsi, and so there was a lot of like full-on sponsors, sponsor breaks in addition to full-on commercials. So for a 2-hour webcast with some of the biggest names in the history of music, it was probably like an hour. You probably could have watched. You could listen to the CD in like under an hour, I'd say. Okay, as well. In addition to all of the great performances that we did see. Okay, we did not see performances from Usher, Beyonce, LL Cool J, Alicia Keys, or Pharrell. All appeared on the webcast without actually singing, giving us PSAs or whatnot. But especially Beyonce and especially Alicia Keys, who would have been absolutely perfect on a piano, heartfelt covered on a piano. Alicia Keys, one of the best in the business, in all honesty, at that particular thing. You know what I mean? Like, this would have been the absolute perfect Alicia Keys bringing the house down with an amazing cover on piano, like I said, as well as Beyonce. I mean, you can understand LL Cool J or Pharrell, not doing an acoustic Zoom performance. However, you would have loved to see something from, like I said, two of the best, vocalists in 2020 music. All right, so that was a little bit of a bummer there, but all things considered, like I mentioned, really, really enjoyed it. If I was going to give it an official Netflix and chat review, I'm giving it a Stone Cold Steve Austin hell yeah.
Hell yeah!
And I guess listen to the last 10 minutes of a Netflix and chat episode. Of course, Geeked Up Podcast, Geeked Up Presents Netflix and Chat, as well available right here on Big LW Podcasts. But I guess consult the last 10 minutes of a Netflix and Chat for the official review ranking explanations. But I'm giving it a Stone Cold Steve Austin hell yeah. I will tell you that if this review was of the Willie Nelson 420 cast a couple days earlier, it would have got a Rudy's Dad. As the Willie Nelson birthday 420 webcast was absolutely amazing. However, At Home Together, the Global Citizens Fest, was a big Stone Cold Steve Austin hell yeah.
Hell yeah!
And like I said, a super fun, memorable night in Coronaville with some of the biggest stars in music, helping you get through the evening. So a really cool experience there for a virtual good time, literally. And the At Home Together Global Citizens Fest webcast, I guess. That being the official Big LW eyewitness account concert review, a concert review from a man who was sitting in his living room, much like all the performers. But I was there to witness it.
Big F!
WEFUNK. We funk.